They called it peacekeeping, and the word echoed through the Grand Strategic Chamber like an insult disguised as diplomacy. I was there when the first reports arrived, standing behind Admiral Korthrax as the hololithic stars flickered and reshaped themselves into red-marked sectors. Human deployments. Again. No declaration of war. No formal challenge. Just their ships arriving, silent and orderly, parking themselves between warring fleets as if the galaxy itself had invited them. The council murmured. Admirals shifted their crests, mandibles, frills, or plaited shoulders, each reacting in their own species' way. We had all fought wars. We had all crushed rebellions. We understood conquest, retaliation, annihilation. But humans? Humans unsettled us because they did none of those things at first. They are deploying unarmed vessels, reported the analyst cast, voice thin with confusion. No weapon signatures beyond point defense. No targeting locks. They are broadcasting medical and evacuation corridors. Laughter rippled through the chamber, sharp and mocking. Admiral Korthrax let out a low, grinding sound that passed for amusement among my kind. Unarmed ships did not survive border wars. Compassion was not a tactic, it was a vulnerability. Or so we believed. The hologram shifted. Two rival empires, locked in a century-long blood feud, their fleets moments from annihilating each other. Between them now floated human vessels, white-hulled, marked with blue insignia, radiating calm like a provocation. Our sensors confirmed it. No jamming, no threats. Only open channels repeating the same message in hundreds of translated dialects. Ceasefire. Civilians first. We will hold position. Arrogance, spat Admiral Seluan of the Vrax. They presume authority they have not earned. They presume we will respect it, Korthrax replied, and there was something thoughtful in his tone that made my spines itch. The first shots were inevitable. A destroyer from the eastern faction fired, plasma lances screaming toward the nearest human ship. The chamber leaned forward as one. We expected debris, fire, proof that this farce would end quickly. Instead, the human vessel absorbed the impact. Not deflected, absorbed. Energy vanished into shimmering fields that rippled once, then stabilized. No counter-fire followed. The human ship did not move. Silence fell heavier than any explosion. More shots came, then missiles, then a full barrage as pride demanded escalation. Still the humans did not retaliate. Their ships maneuvered with deliberate slowness, placing themselves in the firing arcs, interposing hulls and shields, herding civilians away from the crossfire with surgical precision. Casualty projections across the sector plummeted in real time. They're rewriting the battle space, someone whispered. Not through force. Through refusal. Hours passed. Ammunition ran low. Reactors overheated. Crews on both sides began to hesitate, confused by an enemy that would not behave like one. When a human transmission cut through again, softer now, it was no longer ignored. Stand down. Medical aid inbound. Negotiation teams ready. And then the humans did something worse than fighting back. They left. Without ceremony, without victory displays, their ships withdrew once evacuation was complete. They took no territory, issued no demands, left behind only data caches detailing ceasefire frameworks, resource-sharing proposals, and long-term reconstruction models. The rival fleets drifted in the void, weapons hot but purposeless, staring at the absence the humans had carved into their war. In the chamber, no one spoke. This is manipulation, Admiral Seluan finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Korthrax replied slowly. This is containment. More reports flooded in. Other sectors. Other conflicts. The same pattern. Humans arriving early, staying just long enough to stop the bleeding, then vanishing. Always unarmed. Always calm. Always effective. And if someone ignores them completely? I asked, surprising myself by speaking. Korthrax turned, his many eyes focusing on me. The chamber dimmed as if sensing the weight of the question. Then, he said, we will learn why they call this peacekeeping and why they do not send diplomats when peace fails. The holomap flickered again, this time highlighting a distant system where human ships were massing in greater numbers than before. Still unarmed. Still silent. For now, the reckoning had not begun. But the galaxy, for the first time, felt watched. The days that followed tasted of unease, the kind that settles beneath armor plating and refuses to dislodge. Reports stacked higher than tactical projections, each one confirming the same impossible trend. Human peacekeeping fleets continued to appear across contested systems, always before the first decisive blow, always just in time to prevent annihilation. They did not demand tribute. They did not negotiate from positions of strength. They simply arrived, endured violence without response, and departed once survival was assured. Admirals across the Empire bristled. Wars were sacred engines of order. Humans treated them like disasters to be managed. I watched Admiral Korthrax study the feeds in silence, his usual certainty eroding frame by frame. "They are conditioning us," he finally said, "teaching the galaxy to pause." No one disagreed. Pausing in war was unnatural. Pausing invited weakness. Yet everywhere humans intervened, conflict stalled, momentum shattered by restraint. Even victory-hungry fleets hesitated, uncertain how to fight an enemy who refused to acknowledge the rules of war itself. The council convened again under emergency protocols. This time the chamber felt smaller, as if the walls themselves leaned inward to listen. Admiral Seluan argued for expulsion. Others demanded we test human resolve with overwhelming force. Data priests warned of statistical anomalies, casualty curves flattening wherever humans appeared, resource depletion slowing, refugee flows stabilizing. Peace, accidental or not, was spreading. That frightened us more than conquest. Empires were built on predictable violence. Humans made violence inefficient. Then came the Carson incident. A minor border clash, unremarkable by our standards. 2 fleets, 1 planet, expendable populations. Human ships arrived as expected, broadcasting corridors and ceasefire requests. This time, the Carson High Admiral refused. He ordered sustained fire, full saturation, no pauses. The humans absorbed it, shields flaring brighter than before. Still no retaliation. Still no withdrawal. Hours stretched. Ammunition drained. Carson pilots screamed as reactors failed and heat overwhelmed systems. And still the humans remained. When the first Carson ship detonated from internal overload, panic spread. Not from enemy fire, but from self-destruction. The humans transmitted again, voices calm, almost gentle. "Disengage. We will assist." Some did. Others could not. By the time the humans withdrew, they left behind medical drones tending to enemy crews, repair schematics open to all frequencies, and a single message encoded in every known military language. Escalation acknowledged. Response logged. That phrase ignited fear. It spread faster than any fleet. Analysts dissected it. Linguists argued nuance. Philosophers whispered implications. Logged by whom? For what purpose? The humans did not explain. They simply continued their operations unchanged. But something had shifted. Their patience now felt finite. Their restraint, conditional. Peacekeeping, it seemed, was not forgiveness. It was observation. Admiral Korthrax ordered a deep historical review of humanity's pre-galactic conflicts. What we found unsettled even the most hardened among us. Humans had waged wars of extinction against themselves and survived. They had codified rules not to limit victory but to prevent total collapse. Their concept of peacekeeping was not mercy. It was damage control, refined through millennia of near annihilation. "They know exactly how bad this can get," I said quietly as the archive scrolled. "Because they've lived it." Korthrax nodded, slow and heavy. "And they're deciding how much of it we deserve to experience." New intelligence arrived before the council could adjourn. Human fleets were repositioning. Not between small skirmishes now, but near major Imperial supply lanes. Always visible, always silent, admirals across the galaxy began issuing contradictory orders. Advance, hold, wait. Initiative died in hesitation. War stalled not because humans fought them, but because no one knew what would happen if they forced the issue. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy's greatest militaries found themselves restrained by the presence of ships that would not fire. And somewhere beyond the edge of our charts, human construction yards accelerated, their purpose unannounced. Peacekeeping, I realized, was only the first phase. The reckoning was being prepared quietly, patiently, while we argued over whether humans were weak. And we were running out of time to be wrong. Fear does not announce itself with alarms. It seeps in through hesitation, through orders rewritten, and then rewritten again until nothing moves. By the third cycle after the Carson incident, the galaxy was afraid of silence. Human peacekeeping fleets held their positions along critical arteries of trade and war, never obstructing, never threatening, simply existing as an unignorable variable. Every admiral knew the same truth and refused to say it aloud. Conflict no longer belonged solely to those who wished to wage it. I was present when the first Imperial fleet deliberately tested the boundary. The Valm coalition, proud and ancient, launched a rapid strike through a corridor marked as human-monitored. Their doctrine was speed and shock. Overwhelm before interference could matter. They assumed the humans would move aside or absorb and endure, as always. They were wrong. The human ships did not block the Valm advance. They did not raise shields or broadcast warnings. Instead, they altered space itself. Navigation arrays across the Valm fleet desynchronized simultaneously, not jammed, not hacked, but subtly rewritten. Vessels emerged from micro-jumps scattered across millions of kilometers, intact but isolated. No damage. No casualties. Just separations so complete that coordination became impossible. Human transmissions followed, precise and cold. Unauthorized escalation detected. Peacekeeping protocols elevated. No further action required. The Valm fleet spent 3 days regrouping, humiliated, confused, alive. The humans remained motionless throughout, as if nothing noteworthy had occurred. News of the incident detonated across the Empire. This was not restraint. This was capability, revealed just enough to be unmistakable. They could intervene without bloodshed, without effort, without even acknowledging the enemy as such. War, we realized, was optional to them. Control was not. Emergency councils collapsed into chaos. Some demanded immediate united action, a decisive strike before humanity's influence calcified into dominance. Others argued the opposite, urging appeasement, treaties, concessions. None could agree on a single plan because every plan assumed predictable responses. Humanity had demonstrated that they did not play to win battles. They played to end them. Admiral Korthrax summoned me privately. His massive form seemed diminished in the low light of his chamber. "You've studied their history," he said. "Tell me what comes next." I answered honestly. "Escalation, but not the kind we understand. They will continue until conflict becomes inefficient everywhere. And if someone refuses to learn," he finished the thought, "they will teach." As if summoned by the words, new intelligence arrived. A system long quarantined for extreme militarism, its species incapable of sustained diplomacy, had annihilated a neutral colony despite human warnings. 3 billion dead. The humans had been present. They had evacuated what they could. They had not stopped the attack. This time, they did not withdraw afterward. Human fleets converged, larger than ever before. Still unarmed by conventional metrics. Still broadcasting no threats. The galaxy watched, breathless, waiting for the punishment. It did not come as fire. Human ships deployed structures instead, vast, intricate constructs that wrapped the system in layered fields. Trade ceased. Communications dimmed. The stars themselves seemed quieter. Within days, the militant species found their industrial output declining, their reactors throttled by invisible constraints, their fleets unable to leave the gravity wells they once dominated. A prison built without walls. This is containment, I whispered, remembering Korthrax's words. The humans released a final message, addressed to all known powers. This system is under indefinite peacekeeping administration. Hostilities suspended. Reconstruction pending behavioral compliance. No demands. No timetable. Just inevitability. The effect was catastrophic. Empires founded on fear now feared irrelevance. Wars halted mid-campaign as admirals reconsidered objectives that might trigger similar tension. Entire military doctrines were rewritten in panic. Not to defeat humanity, but to avoid them. And through it all, the humans remained calm, procedural, almost invisible. They did not posture. They did not gloat. They acted like custodians cleaning a mess too dangerous to ignore. I understood then the true horror of human peacekeeping. It was not about saving lives, though it did. It was about redefining power so completely that violence became a liability. The galaxy was not being conquered. It was being managed. And those who resisted would discover how little say they truly had in the matter. The galaxy did not collapse into panic all at once. It frayed. One order at a time. One fleet held back. One admiral hesitated where once hesitation meant death. Human peacekeeping zones expanded not through conquest, but through consensus born of fear. No banners changed. No capitals burned. Yet the balance of power shifted so subtly that many did not realize it until resistance had become impractical. Inside the Empire, fractures widened. Younger commanders questioned doctrines older than their species' recorded memory. Veteran admirals dismissed humans as temporary anomalies, clinging to the belief that restraint masked fragility. I listened to both sides argue, until words lost meaning. What none of them wanted to admit was simple: war no longer escalated on our terms. The breaking point came at the Council of Unified Arms, a gathering convened to decide whether humanity should be confronted directly. Dozens of species, hundreds of fleets represented, trillions of lives implied by every vote. I stood behind Admiral Korthrax as he addressed the chamber, his voice heavy with something close to resignation. "We have mistaken absence of aggression for absence of threat," he said. "Humans are not peacekeepers because they are weak. They are peacekeepers because they have already survived what we are racing toward." The chamber erupted. Accusations flew. Cowardice. Surrender. Treason. Korthrax endured it all, without retreating. He did not need to win the argument. Events would do that for him. They began only hours later. An allied coalition, assembled in secret, launched a coordinated strike against a human-administered containment system. Their logic was brutal and familiar. Break one example hard enough, and the rest will fall back into line. The attack was overwhelming. Hundreds of warships. Planet crackers armed. Enough firepower to erase a system. Human ships were present. They did not move. The first salvo never reached its targets. Space folded, not violently, not catastrophically, but decisively. Weapon trajectories curved into nothing. Energy dispersed into harmless radiation. Communications collapsed into localized loops. The attacking fleets found themselves isolated inside carefully bounded volumes of space, unable to retreat, unable to advance, unable to even fire effectively. Human transmissions followed, stripped of warmth now, stripped of diplomacy. Peacekeeping protocols exhausted. Enforcement phase initiated. Across the galaxy, human fleets shifted posture. Not by raising weapons, but by activating systems no one had believed possible. Supply lines failed. Automated factories stalled. Military AIs across dozens of empires locked themselves behind authentication challenges that could not be bypassed. Not destroyed. Paused. Wars everywhere ground to a halt in the same moment. The coalition fleet remained trapped for days. Humans did not attack. They did not board. They waited. When at last the coalition surrendered, their ships were released one by one, disarmed, crews alive but shaken. Their commanders returned home not as martyrs, but as witnesses. The message spread faster than any propaganda. Humanity could end wars without killing armies. And if they chose not to, they could let them destroy themselves instead. Inside the Empire, Silence followed. The council did not reconvene. It did not need to. Power had spoken, and it had not bothered to raise its voice. I found Admiral Korthrax alone, gazing at a starfield that no longer felt infinite. "This is not occupation," he said quietly. "It is supervision." "For how long?" I asked. He did not answer immediately. When he did, his tone carried something I had never heard from him before. Respect. "For as long as it takes for the galaxy to stop mistaking survival for victory." Human peacekeepers remained where they were. Containment systems stayed sealed. Reconstruction began under human oversight, resources allocated with ruthless efficiency. Lives improved. Stability returned. And beneath it all, a pressure remained, constant and undeniable. We were no longer free to wage war simply because we could. As I reviewed the latest reports, one final update caught my attention. A classified human directive, intercepted but not decrypted, had been distributed across their fleets. Its designation was chillingly simple. Phase 3. Deterrence. I closed the file, slowly. Peacekeeping had failed. Management had begun. And the galaxy had not yet seen what humanity considered a final warning. The galaxy adjusted, as all living systems do when pressure becomes constant. Trade resumed under new rules. Borders hardened into agreements instead of battle lines. Admirals learned to win influence without firing weapons, because firing weapons now invited attention no one wanted. Human peacekeepers remained everywhere and nowhere, their presence so normalized that younger generations assumed it had always been this way. That assumption terrified those of us who remembered before. Phase 3 did not announce itself with catastrophe. It arrived as a question. Human fleets began withdrawing from minor systems first. Quietly, methodically, peacekeeping corridors were handed back to local authorities deemed stable. Containment fields loosened. Oversight reduced. The galaxy exhaled, mistaking this for trust. Admiral Korthrax did not. "They are testing us," he said during our final private conversation. His voice carried no fear now, only weary certainty. The way one tests a blade after reforging it, and blades, when returned to old habits, break. The test came from the Rimward Expanse, where a coalition of warborn species announced a unilateral reclamation campaign. They cited ancient rights, contested borders, historical grievances. The language was familiar, comforting. Fleets mobilized, weapons armed. For the first time in years, violence surged without immediate human intervention. For 3 days, humanity did nothing. The galaxy watched in uneasy anticipation as cities burned and orbital defenses shattered. Casualty numbers climbed. Refugee streams returned. Admirals whispered that perhaps the humans had finally overextended, finally withdrawn too far to maintain their illusion of control. On the 4th day, the humans spoke. Not to the coalition. To everyone. Their transmission was brief, unadorned, stripped of diplomacy and warmth alike. Phase 3 concluded. Phase 4 commencing. This is the final advisory. No explanation followed. No countdown. Just silence. Then the stars changed. Across the Rimward Expanse, human constructs activated